Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we're talking about some more recommendations that I've had for the last month. Is a meme now, but a lot of you know that I'm fairly busy, and so my new moniker is Nathan Busy Jones. But I have had time to watch a few things, and I'm finally chipping through a lot of the collections that I have just started. And so today I want to show you some titles that I've been going through and some really exciting boutique labels, as well as a few other things that I really just want to talk about, and I'm super excited about it. I just can't wait to showcase to you what I've been checking out, but I actually want to know, before I even start this, what have you been watching lately? Tell me down in the comment section. I'm very, very curious about everyone else's film journeys. I kind of want to know where everyone is standing. Everyone has different moods, and like right now, I'm really wanting to watch horror films, which you'll probably get a little bit of that today. But it's about to be September actually, and so October is very, 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 very close. All right, so let's just jump straight into it, and I'm actually going to offend all of you at first bat, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to offend all of you. I have not seen this film until a few days ago, and like I said, it's going to offend some people. I finally watched Roadhouse. So this actually happened, it's a fictional story in Jasper, Missouri. So I'm actually from Springfield, Missouri, and Jasper, Missouri is relatively close. It's about an hour away. And so my joke is that, as somebody from Missouri, this happens way too often. And, I see this all the time happening in small towns left and right. A really rich millionaire comes in, tries to hire a lot of guns, tries to, take over the small guy, and you get some kind of bouncer or bodyguard of some kind of club, and they're usually pretty good looking, and they definitely don't belong in that line of work. And sometimes they can even do really incredible feats like ripping somebody's throat out, something like that. That happens quite often here in Missouri. So Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, God, I miss him so much, and I cannot believe that I'm finally watching a lot of Patrick Swayze films, to be honest. I have watched a lot of his films in the past, and I still haven't seen everything he's done. I don't even think I've seen Ghost. So that's another thing that's kind of offensive. I've seen a lot of parts of that film, but I haven't seen that movie in particular. But I really enjoyed Roadhouse, and I got a lot of flack from it from a lot of my friends, and so I finally decided to put it on the queue, and I finally watched it, and I really enjoyed it, and I looked forward to watching it again with some friends. It doesn't stand terribly well to today's standards with a lot of things going on, but at the same time, it's really, really fun. So check out Roadhouse if you haven't seen it before. I'm sure I'm the only one in the entire world who hasn't. So yeah, that's the first thing I want to talk about. Then we can move on to some boutique labels that I finally dove into. All right, I have a confession, everyone. I'm fucking in love with Indicator. I cannot believe they have been putting out such amazing quality content. Their box sets are just amazing, and I have so many things coming my way, this is a preview of me talking about it, that I'm just so in love with this particular company, and I cannot wait for that Columbia Noir set, Volume 1. I'm sure a lot of you have already pre-ordered this. I have pre-ordered it as well, and so there's a little bit of a preview, but I actually finally, it's not behind me right now, because normally you would see it in the corner. I have finally dove and watched all of the films in this Hammer Volume 5 Death and Deceit box set. So right here is this really, really wonderful and beautiful box with so many different films in it. Now, I watched Visa to Canton, which is the first film in this box set out of 4 films. I watched Visa to Canton maybe about 2 months ago, so I really haven't talked about this film in particular, and honestly, I don't rightly recall too much about it. I do realize that there is a British spy who comes into China, into Hong Kong, into the Canton region, and is set there just to try to kind of stop a Cold War kind of espionage thing going on down there in the red state, if you will, in China, right? The cool thing about this, it also has really good actor and actresses in it. Richard Basehart, Athene Saylor, and Lisa Gastoni, just to name a few. It's also very interesting because if you look at, obviously, the opening in here, when you pull it out, actually in America, it was called Passport to China, which is actually not correct when it comes to naming it, but I guess that was maybe a political reason. I don't exactly know why, but I really enjoyed Visa de Canton. I think it's fairly average compared to the other films, but it was a really good time and definitely a precursor to something like James Bond. And that's something that I really, really enjoy. I grew up with James Bond, and so something like this is really, really fun to watch, and definitely something I'll revisit someday. So let's actually move on to the swashbuckler films in this particular box set. All right, so we're going to move on to the swashbuckler films in this box set. The first one is the Pirates of Blood River, which has the amazing Christopher Lee in it right here. It also has Glenn Corbett and Kerwin Matthews as the main character in this film, who's like the main protagonist. Christopher Lee is definitely one of the antagonists. Look at him right there. He's got a freaking eye patch on him, and he is a French like ex-pirate. And also, before diving into this film, Hammer, has kind of a lower budget at times, and to kind of subsidize a pirate film, right, not being on the seas too much, they actually are mostly on land the entire film. And so I think that's really, really cool, and a really creative way of trying to get around that budget is kind of setting it on land. And Blood River is a really, really cool kind of set design that they have with piranhas, and I'll get into that in a second. But Pirates of Blood River is a really, really great film. It also stars Oliver Reed, Andrew Keir, Marlo Landy, and Peter Arne. And it's directed by John Gilling. In fact, the other films that I'm going to be talking about are also directed by John Gilling, and a lot of these actors and actresses are starring in both. And so this is just a really, really cool showcase of John Gilling and his work at Hammer. And I'm just diving into Hammer more and more and more. You're aware, I've actually talked a little bit about the Dracula series. I actually did a podcast with my friend Daniel at Cobwebs. I'll link it down in the description. I talked a lot about the Legends of the Seven Golden Vampires. I even talked about my journey of going from the Dracula horror. I watched all of the Hammer horror Dracula films, and I'm just really excited to dive further into all the other Hammer franchise bits. The horror side of it, the swashbuckler side of it, the espionage, you name it, and I'm just excited about it. And that's another reason why I'm liking Indicator, because these Hammer box sets are really, really cool. But Pirates of Blood River, right? Really good film. I really enjoyed it. It's set in this Huguenot community who's kind of just... historically, this is actually what happened, to live on their own, but they're plagued, obviously, by these pirates who have heard that there was gold in this community, and they want to find it, right? And so they go inland, and they find Kerwin Matthews' character, who they capture him, and then they take him back to their village, and that's in that community, and that's kind of where this story begins. And it's a lot of really cool romance involved with this story. There's also some really cool effects going on, some good battles. I really love the piranhas in Blood River specifically. At the very, very beginning of the film, you kind of get what I didn't actually know what the hell was going on when I was watching it at the very beginning, because I was like, what's coming towards this woman who falls into this river, this Blood River? And then I found out relatively quickly what it was. And so, yeah, it's just a really fun time. And if you haven't seen the Pirates of Blood River, it's definitely one of the best films in this set. I highly recommend it. It's really, really fun, and it's a good time. And Christopher Lee has an eye patch and kind of a French accent, so it's a little fun, right? So we're going to move on from another John Gilling film right here. Next to the Scarlet Blade right here. And I didn't show you, but each of these has reversible covers, which I really like about Indicator. Sorry about that. Look at the Pirates of Blood River. There's another reversible cover. I like the one with Christopher Lee on it because it's got the eye patch, and that's really, really cool. Indicator is just really cool with their artwork and their special features. I didn't even talk about the special features. I'll talk about it with Scarlet Blade. But that right there is a Scarlet Blade poster that I enjoy. And then there's also another one in America that they changed it to the Crimson Blade. And so you can tell that there's a few different titles going on with a lot of these films, both in England and in America. Now, I just prefer the English version because that's where Hammer's located, and I would rather watch that. So that's just the way I want to do it. But yeah, this is an adventure film, Scarlet Blade. It's more of like a Robin Hood type film where it's set in the English Civil War, and a lot of the characters in it. So you have Lionel Jeffries, Oliver Reed's back in here and again. We have Jack Hedley, June Thorburn, and John Gilling is directing it once again. Some really, really cool actors and actresses in this film in particular. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a little bit more action-oriented, and it does kind of near the end of the film a little bit with some espionage and Robin Hood-like tactics. What you get is you get these rebels who are actually ones more loyal to the king, having to kind of take shelter from this colonel and this captain that kind of take over this town, and they are really just corrupting the entire town, kind of making them pay for their rebellious acts, or just the reason that they are loyal to the king, right? And so I think it's really, really interesting seeing, especially Oliver Reed's character. I really love him in this film. He's one of the villains, and you can kind of tell that he's a bad guy. He's very shady, and there's a lot of things going on with his character, and I really, really enjoy it though. So Oliver Reed's definitely like the takeaway from this particular film for me. And yeah, if you haven't seen Scarlet Blade, it's a really good time. It's a little bit more. It's less action, it's a little bit more talking, more dialogue-based things, and a little bit more politics. But that's just kind of how it goes, and it was a fun film nonetheless. It's definitely one of my favorites in this particular box set. It's probably my second favorite, but Scarlet Blade is a good time, and I recommend it for sure. Talk about this last film in this Hammer Volume 5 Death and Deceit box set, and we're going to talk about The Brigand of Kandahar. And that is one of the covers right there, and if we reverse it, right here, this is the other one that it comes with. You got right there. It's really cool as well. This one's kind of one of the titles that I like to switch back and forth between the posters because I think both of them are really, really cool. Now this one is a little bit more set in the Middle East right here. Once again, we have John Gilling as the director. We also have Ronald Lewis as our main character. Oliver Reed's back in it again. He's actually one of the villains. He plays a good villain, as you can see, as I talked about Scarlet Blade earlier. Duncan Lamont, Yvonne Romaine, she's wonderful in this film. She's terrifying, actually. And Catherine Woodville, just to name a few of the people in this film. I think this one's really, really good, and it also talks a lot about colonialism. And a lot of these films actually hit on colonialism, especially from kind of that dwindling British Empire release as they held on the world for so long, and a lot of these are remnants of that. And so these films are really interesting time capsules into those different specific areas and how the British Empire kind of saw it, especially in the 1950s and 60s, right, with these films. And so I think this one in particular can have some problematic things going on for it. There's definitely some characters who kind of, they're white characters playing, you know, Arabian characters, or and so that's just not gonna fly in today's world. But for particular historical context, I think this is a really interesting film, and it's a very interesting piece just of cinema in general, because Hammer productions are all just really, really interesting, and I'm finding to dive deeper and deeper into this stuff. I didn't mention the scores of these films, but the scores of these films are just phenomenal, and there's actually a lot of really cool special features in these films. In this Indicator box set specifically, and I really, really enjoy it. I highly recommend you get more Indicator things because they are to the level of Criterion when it comes to the special features that they showcase on it with audio commentary. You have people commenting on the acting. There's film introductions. There's people who are involved in these films from a technical aspect, maybe a production aspect, and you can hear them talk about it. And you also have film historians and authors just talking about the different films and just the history of Hammer, and it's really, really cool. I highly recommend, like I said, getting this Hammer box set and other Hammer box sets, as well as other Indicator titles, which I'll be talking about in the near future. But that's all I'm going to talk about with this one. I had a really good time. I cannot wait to dive further into more Indicator. All right, moving straight from Indicator to another UK label, a boutique label, that is Eureka Masters of Cinema. And I've had a lot of these films, just kind of, I've been collecting them for a little bit, and I've been getting them slowly. I have about probably 15 titles or so now, but I haven't started any of them yet. And where to begin with this, right? Where would I start with Eureka? Well, I probably should start with spine number 1, right? I should probably start with Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. This film is just phenomenal. It's from 1927. It's by F.W. Murnau, which I'll talk about Murnau in a second. But this is actually a beautiful, beautiful film starring Janet Gaynor and George O'Brien as our main actor and actresses. And I just am absolutely floored by this story. I think it's really, really beautiful. You get F.W. Murnau, who is a master of kind of that German expressionism, coming over to Hollywood and kind of showcasing that. And there's probably some constraints here too. But I really, really, really enjoyed this silent picture. It's one of the best silent pictures, silent classics that I've ever seen, and I really, really loved it. Nobody in the film really has a specific name, but Margaret Livingston's character is kind of a vampiric seductress, and she kind of just tries to seduce George O'Brien's character from moving away from his farm into the city and killing his wife. And his wife, right here, Janet Gaynor, who is just amazing in this film. And the thing about silent films, and before I even jump into this film, I don't know, one of the first films that I watched one of the first silent films that I watched was a lot of F.W. Murnau's work. I watched something like Nosferatu or Fritz Lang's Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I even watched something like Metropolis, another Fritz Lang film, but also, The Passion of Joan of Arc, which is just one of the greatest films I've ever seen. And the reason I'm talking about expressionism and also just silent films in general is the way people act physically. There's no dialogue. The dialogue is all on cue cards. And those cue cards definitely hints and help the story and kind of progress what's going on. But it's all in the acting, the set design, the acting, just the nonverbals, the expressions, it's otherworldly, to be honest. And honestly, this was when it was so closely married to theater that it's almost like they shared a world. Theater and movies, they shared a world, and I really enjoy that aspect of these films. And I wanted to say that Janet Gaynor's character certainly portrays so much emotion in this film. In fact, everybody does, really. That I'm enamored by it, and I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful piece of work. But yeah, Sunrise. So yeah, they move to the city, kind of rekindle their love, and they conquer, obviously, that seduction. And there's a lot of twists and turns of this film, and I don't really want to get into that. I want you to watch it if you haven't seen it yourself. But it's just such a phenomenal film, and I highly recommend Sunrise. If you want to start with Eureka Masters of Cinema, this is the first one I would get. Obviously, it's spine number 1. It comes with the dual format. It comes with a lot of things here. It's the film restoration HD versions of two different versions, the movie tone and the Czech version. The Czech version is definitely like the most complete version of this film ever found and restored, which is really, really cool. And there's a lot of history in the booklet involved with this particular film, and also the special features that I'm about to mention. We have original English intertitles with movie tone. We have the original movie tone score, which is the one I listened to. And we also have an alternate Olympic Chamber Orchestra score, which I'm excited to dive into sometime as well when I get the chance. And we have full-length audio commentary with cinematographer John Bailey on the movie tone version. Murnau's Four Devils, Traces of a Lost Film. It's like an updated documentary on one of his films that he made kind of shortly after this one. Original theatrical trailer and the 20-page booklet describing, not destroying, the details of the films of the restoration process. It's just a really, really cool release. And Eureka, I had to start here, right? And speaking of F.W. Murnau, the next film that I watched, and I just watched this today, so it's still fresh, and I haven't watched all the special features, and there's definitely different versions of this film. Faust. I watched Faust, and this is spine number 78, and I watched this film earlier today, a little bit last night before I recorded this, and I was enamored by it. As somebody who really loves the macabre and also just maybe something like Paradise Lost, if you've read that book, right? That Milton book, you can kind of get that view of good and evil, that really twisted and dark side of what portrayed good and evil, especially in the early 20th century. And in the late 1800s, there was this definitely black and white, very personified characters of someone like Mephisto in this particular film, who is definitely a demon who's trying to seduce our main character, Faust. Like something like this, or something like Haxon, which is another really, really fantastic film, really dives deep into that witchcraft and demonic kind of look to things, and it's just stunning. And I was just talking earlier about Sunrise, about how I love silent pictures. This is another silent picture from 1926. It's like one of his last German films before he came over here. The artwork in this, and the set design, is just phenomenal. The lighting, oh my God. I was just talking about Good and Evil. The lighting between, the angel and the demon is so phenomenal, and it kind of just like bookends this film, right? As we're seeing that struggle between good and evil on Faust's soul, as he's just trying. Faust, who is a professor and alchemist, who's kind of just misguided, definitely takes the wrong side at first, and that's kind of the tale here. And it's just really, really good. He has to decide between good and evil, and this film definitely showcases that in a lot of different ways with a lot of the different characters involved in this film. He falls in love with a woman, Gretchen, and all under false pretenses, definitely with Mephisto's help. And, you just see a lot of consequence in this film, and I really, really enjoy it. And yeah, this is definitely, I wanted to dive deeper into F.W. Murnau. I've always enjoyed his films, and I've enjoyed a lot of the things that he's done. And so I had to start with Sunrise, right? And then I had to end it with Faust. And I'm going to keep going with his films, and I'm just going to keep going in this silent film direction because I'm just really enjoying silent film right now. I don't know what it is, but that's just what's on my queue right now. So moving on from Eureka, we're actually going to go to the Criterion Collection. All right, going on to the Criterion Collection, a film that I recently just watched that actually left me speechless. In fact, all I have to say is a number to you if you've seen this film. I finally watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the film that I should have watched last year, and I definitely probably would have had that at number 1 or number 2 if I had seen it sooner. I was blown away by this film. The actresses in this film, the direction, the artwork, the cinematography, the photography, honestly, just the nonverbal gestures. I talked a lot about nonverbals with silent pictures. This film almost feels like a silent film sometimes. Obviously, the dialogue's there. It's very, very helpful in getting a lot of the context and those tonalities that exist between the two characters in this film. It's just so lovely. It's so enchanting, and it's honestly, it makes my, I don't know, I got a lot of Call Me By Your Name vibes from this film. Just seeing a love that is certainly not accepted, especially in the time period that this film was set in. Also talks a lot about a female painter who was just unseen during this time period, and definitely not talked about, which is another aspect of this film that's really interesting. But I got a lot of Call Me By Your Name vibes just from the fact that this is just this forbidden love that's going on, and it's blossoming, and it's discovery, it's beauty, it's heartbreak, it's all of it, and it's just so phenomenal. And yeah, I'm gonna probably butcher the French names in this film, but we have a beautiful, beautiful film by Celine Sciamma, Naomi Merlant, and Adele Haenel. I probably said their names incorrectly, and I apologize for not, diving deeper before I even recorded this. But I was enamored by this film. I cannot wait to rewatch it. It's something that it won't get out of my mind at all. It's a masterpiece, and you should certainly see it. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about is something that I haven't dove into yet. And if you're looking behind me, and if you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I've had this in my collection for a while, but it's time to watch it. And I hope to actually watch this with another person, actually my next guest, who will be on my Film Journey series, that I hope you're all enjoying. Tell me down in the comment section down below if you're enjoying that or not. But the next guest that I will be talking to, we are going to try to dive deeper into this box set, or just the work of this director. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about John Cassavetes. I don't know much about it, but this box set I've had for far too long, and I've really wanted to dive into it, and I just don't know where to start. So I want you in the comment section to tell me down below, should I just start with the order of the films that come in this collection? Should I start with a documentary or anything else outside of this collection to start off with John Cassavetes? I know something like Husbands exists also in the collection, and some other works as well. But I just want to hear your thoughts down in the comment section down below. So this is actually my call out for you to help me with my Q series. And so this is another thing that I'm looking forward to diving into, and I'm just excited to talk about it, especially with my new next guest. So I hope you enjoyed my Q series for today. I want to know again what's on your queue. What have you been watching? Have you been watching any horror films? I've been really wanting to get into that, like I said earlier. It's something that, it's that time of season. The seasons are changing, the summer is dwindling down, fall is coming back, and I really, really like that. So thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope that we get to see each other once again very soon. And I hope everyone is well. I hope you're able to comment down below, tell me your thoughts on the video, and give me a like, share this video, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.